In order to understand how I got to where I am, I'd have to go back pretty far. And I don't think it's really the appropriate forum for me to do that here. I've been asked recently about my family, if I could share more about our situation. And I've given it a lot of thought on how I would go about doing that. I'm not sure how yet or when. I think I'm going to keep praying on it a little bit more. I really appreciate many of you on here. And many of you have been following me for a few years now. And you pray for me, and I'm very grateful for that. But I also have learned over time that my privacy is my peace. And sharing certain things, while freeing in a lot of ways, can also be, I don't know, it can be, it's very revealing. It's a vulnerable place to be. And I'm not against vulnerability. And while I would love to just throw caution to the wind and tell you all how I got where I am, in the hopes that maybe one or two of you might really get it, the reality is that's a dangerous thing to do right now. I mean, and it's been dangerous for some time, but especially now. It would be naive for me to do that. I reflect on this predicament probably just as much as I reflect on the state of my family, because it's not a good place to be whenever you're too afraid to connect with others. And when I think about other people, other women especially, who are isolated in certain scenarios, and they've got no one to talk to, and their little faces are in their little phones looking, just searching for someone to talk to. I just am very perplexed by that predicament. And to this, I'm talking specifically to any woman or girl who wants to be a housewife or a traditional housewife. I'm not judging. I'm certainly not in that position. Not that anybody is. But I just want to say I have some experience in this area. It's not something that I necessarily sought out consciously. But my decisions have led me into a specific trajectory, which now I'm living I am living a housewife life at the moment. I am hopefully soon, by my choice, going to venture back out of that. But since 2020, that's been, make sure you have a support system. And by that I mean not just online, but real people in your life that you can rely on, that you have a solid relationship with, both partners. Because if you don't have that, and you are left to your own devices every day, and especially if things begin to go wrong in your marriage, and they will go wrong sometimes, it's not a bed of roses. And it takes sometimes that's how it is for a while, and then it improves. It's ebbs and flows, but you're going to need that support. Now, I say this because it needs to be said, because when I see content going around online, and there's really no way to know how popular this content really is with people in everyday life, other than, I see it in my algorithm, it shows up, and I'm kind of getting more and more turned off by it. But there was a time when I was very, it spoke to me. And, and I see the tradition is spreading. Like, even when I go to church now, there's more veiling, and says, the Latin Mass church that I've gone to is gotten more, bigger and bigger. And so I know that it's, it's becoming this sought after thing. And I think it's so beautiful in a lot of ways, but I worry. It's like being swept off your feet, when you fall in love. And you're totally consumed by it, and it feels amazing, but that doesn't last forever, and then you progress out of that stage into something a little deeper, but a little more mature. And you're kind of, it's like, God will even pull back a bit. He pulls back his consolations, and you're left to your spiritual dryness for a bit, and you're left with yourself. And it's very fruitful, in a certain sense. But as a wife, as a person, we are not meant to be alone all of the time. And so obviously community is very important. And obviously church can provide that community in, I guess, most situations. My situation, it's been a bit more challenging, and I don't know how many ladies there are who might be in my situation. So far I seem to be an anomaly. Okay, I know I'm not the only one. I've met some in the similar situations, but not many, or it's very hard to connect because of what I'm talking about. But I am a confirmed Catholic. Okay, my husband was baptized Catholic, but he was not raised Catholic, and he was never confirmed. No first communion, no nothing like that. And I wasn't a practicing Catholic until just. And so obviously community is very important. And obviously church can provide that community in, I guess, most situations. My situation, it's been a bit more challenging, and I don't know how many ladies there are who might be in my situation. So far I seem to be an anomaly. Okay, I know I'm not the only one. I've met some in the similar situations, but not many, or it's very hard to connect because of what I'm talking about. But I am a confirmed Catholic. Okay, my husband was baptized Catholic, but he was not raised Catholic, and he was never confirmed. No first communion, no nothing like that. And I wasn't a practicing Catholic until just. We did all of our stuff backwards. Okay, I became pregnant very early on when we started dating, and it was an unplanned pregnancy, and I decided that I wanted to have my baby, and my husband said, "Okay, let's do this." So, we weren't married at the time, but we stuck together. And then a year later, after my son was born, I decided to take RCIA classes so that I could get confirmed and he could get baptized. And I wanted to send him to Catholic school, so I was trying to get ahead of that. But I really didn't have it wasn't a super deep conviction. My grandmother had passed away just before I got pregnant. And she was a very devout Catholic. And I think on some level, her death kind of inspired in me this. And I really hate to bring this up, and I try not to when I talk about it, but my RCIA, my catechesis was quite terrible. Okay, and that is part of the reason why a year after my confirmation, my husband and I decided to get married, and it didn't even cross my mind to have it in the church. Didn't even cross my mind to think that my husband should, also get confirmed, and that we should do things, in a sacramental way. Didn't even occur to me. Okay, and now it ails me every day that I did not do that, and it is the first prayer I pray every day. So we were married civilly at a courthouse. It was a very sweet, beautiful little wedding, but it was an elopement. So it was just us, we really didn't do things very Catholic at all. And it is my greatest prayer that one day we do. But we are not married in the church. So I go to church, I pray for our family, and I do not receive communion. I'll have to go more into that some other time because it's a pretty complex thing. But that's where I am. And so just to circle back, okay, I have always thought, like, the more and more I've reflected on this situation that I'm in, I've just thought this, if more women do convert or revert, and their spouses do not necessarily follow them right away, then they'll be dealing with the same predicament that I am in. And I know I'm not the first, of course, but and they're going to need to realize and know that it's the path of Saint Monica. Okay, it's like just constant dedication to prayer. And if you weren't a feminist to start with, or you had something against feminism, as you walk down this path, you will very much begin to connect with it, because you're going to find that everyone has an opinion about what you're doing in your marriage, in your invalid marriage, that you know very well if you were to walk away from it, there would be real consequences for yourself and for everybody else. So it's no small matter. And I believe that the Lord would rather see me pray than to threaten to leave if my husband doesn't get on board. Does it hurt me that I cannot receive communion? Yes, it does. It hurts deeply. But it's not a hurt that inspires me to turn the entire world upside down so that I can be appeased. In fact, what it's done is it has allowed me to become more sensitive to God's mercy. I will be overjoyed. Tears will fall from my eyes the day that I have communion again. This doesn't mean that at times I don't become angry or depressed or any manner of, hurtful emotions. I do have those moments. But I know that God sees. And I know that He sees the good of it, and He will make good of it. And I know He sees those that use these mechanisms to inflict pain. He sees that. I don't have to worry, because anyone who does that will receive what's due to them. So I guess that was a little bit more intimate than I originally set out to be, but I hope that that explains a little bit. Maybe you've gained a little bit more clarity or insight into where I'm coming from here. And I am open to more questions. If there's something that I'm not open to talking about, I'll just tell you I'm not open to talking about it. But yeah, if you have more questions for me, feel free to ask.